Hi, welcome everyone. We are back again with our MRSI Wednesday webinar. We are in our 8th season and we are very excited for today's seminar. Today's topic is Winning with Research and Insights, Winning Papers at the MRSI Golden Key Awards 2024. In this webinar, we'll hear from some of the brightest minds in market research, the award-winning researchers of recently concluded MRSI Golden Key Awards. They will share the groundbreaking work and the impact it has made in our field. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn directly from the experts and gain fresh insights that can inspire and educate us. Let us get ready for an exciting and insightful session. Next slide, please, Satish. Before we go into the webinar, a quick note on MRSI. Market Research Society of India is a unique not-for-profit association of both providers and buyers of research and insights. MRSI aims to create awareness of the industry among general public at large as well as the government. It strives to establish and promote professional standards for the industry, and MRSI provides a platform for market research to engage and showcase their work and collaborate on common issues. The MRSI Wednesday webinar is a key initiative to address these goals. The webinar is conducted monthly once, typically on a third or fourth Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Next slide, please. A quick intro into the MRSI Wednesday webinar organizing panel. Amitabh Mishra, Head Insights and Analytics of Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. Sundar Muthuraman, Independent Consultant Marketing Measurement. Mukul Gautam, Independent Consultant. And myself, Shivakumar Somanathan from Curious Cat Consulting. And I'll be the host for today's webinar. Next slide, please. Here are our esteemed speakers for the day. Arpit Jain, Associate Director, Research and Insight, Metrix Research and Analytics. Arpit is a business intelligence lead at Metrix with 8 years of experience in generating insights for the retail industry. He leads the analytics vertical and drives new product development, bringing innovation and precision to retail measurement. Welcome, Arpit. Tripti Sharma, Director, Ipsos Public Affairs. Tripti is a seasoned researcher with over 2 decades of experience. Her curiosity, passion for challenges, and the commitment to equity drives her to design and deliver projects that generate insights that help clients strengthen their policies and programs. Welcome, Tripti. And Ankur Kapoor, Consumer and Market Insights Manager, Lakme, Beauty Incubator and VMS Unilever. Ankur leads the consumer and market insights for Lakme, Makeup and Skincare, Haley 18, and digitally first brands like Novology, Osiva, and Liquid IV. With expertise in product research, brand building, cultural insights, trends, and mapping, and market data measurement, he focused on decoding deep consumer understanding in driving marketing decisions. His strength lies in simplifying complex data into clear and actionable insights. Welcome, Ankur. Thank you all for being here today. Before we start the webinar, request to the audience, please share your questions to the speaker in the question window provided. You can post the question to a specific speaker or the panel. The speakers will be happy to answer them in the final part of the webinar. Next slide, please. Okay. The MRSI Golden Key Awards recognize and celebrate research and researchers who drive business growth and create social impact. While research often works behind the scenes, these awards highlight its crucial role in shaping branding, marketing, and strategy. Issued in 2019, the award continued to honor the power of insights in transforming businesses. Next slide, please. First, I would like to invite the winner of the Best Data Collection Innovation Award, Arpit from Metrix Research Analytics. Arpit will share the award-winning work on transforming retail data collection with GenAI-powered invoice processing. He will discuss on how they leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to replace manual data entry, enabling them to process over 10,000 invoices with great accuracy and 80% time savings. Over to you, Arpit.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar on transforming data. This section will be on transforming data collection for retail measurement services. So as you know, that my name is Arpit Jain and I'm from Metrix Research and Analytics. I'm head of analytics and a subject matter expertise for retail measurement. And I'm thrilled to have you all join us today. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore how advanced analytics can dramatically improve the way we collect the data for the retail measurement, with better insights, greater efficiencies, and fewer errors. So as you all know, that data collection is the foundation of retail measurement services. For a company that track retail sales, market shares, and consumer demand, Accurate and timely data is everything. Yet many of us still rely on manual time-consuming processes. Today, I'll be walking you through an approach we have developed, and a big shout out to Rishabh and Metrix management that were there with us throughout the journey to transform the data in the transformation that we have done today. So we'll be covering the pitfalls of conventional methods, and then a new method that harnesses generative AI for greater speed and accuracy. And finally, the workflow for bringing that method to life and the tangible impact it has made to the real world. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So this is all about the conventional method that are presently a part of the retail measurement services across all of the companies that are presently a part of retail measurement. So let's start talking about the traditional pen and paper or partially digitized approaches. Typically, what they do is the field agents or the data collectors visit retail outlets. They write down all of the SKU level information and sales figure by hand, and then manually enter this data on typically a mobile application later. So while it may be very straightforward in concept, this process is riddled with many challenges. The first and foremost is the high data volumes that are captured by retail measurement service. They can be a panel of thousands of 10,000s of outlets. So the sheer volume each and every month can be massive. And this leads to a significant backlog and delayed insight if it is done manually. Secondly, the error that is introduced by the manual process. So whether it's be transcribing the numbers or inputting SKUs into the system. So all of these two are human error, which can most probably be termed as the accuracy dependent on the field agent or the domain expertise he holds to input that data. Thirdly, it is a very time-consuming process. On an average, a particular auditor or field agent could take up to 2 hours per outlet to input all of that information. And more so, sometimes it takes higher time if the outlet has a high volume of data or high number of SKUs or models. And lastly, there is a lack of end-to-end solution, which means that even if a company is taking cues from advanced analytics, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, they rely on patchwork of tools, which are separate applications for manual and automated data collection. So different data compilation platforms and so on, piecing them all this together leaves a plenty of room for miscommunication and fragmentation. So given these challenges, we needed a way to cut down on the time spent and ensure the consistency and accuracy of data. And that's where we found our new solution. We can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. So our team set out to craft a comprehensive and inclusive survey platform that acts as a single unified hub for retail data capture. On one side, it supports the manual entries, providing a clean and intuitive interface, reducing the likelihood of clerical errors. So built-in checks, validations, and user-friendly UI further refine the process, helping ensure that even a novice field agent can generate reliable and high quality data. On the other hand, we have a state-of-art scanning inputs, which is finally leading to a learning algorithm which is leveraging large language models and generative AI, which pull out all of the details from those invoices or scans. So these tools can be very varied. All of these scans or invoices can be of very varied formats and styling, which we are addressing through the LLMs or AI ML module that we have. So rather than overtly relying on the pen and paper, so we leverage a tech-driven process that involves scanning or uploading of invoices, and then after that, extraction of all of the data such as product name, SKU, quantity, and pricing with an intelligent module. And then we instantly tag them against the product level master that we have so that it aligns with the industry understanding of the data. And lastly, we have a quick consolidation of all the collected data, which means that we have manual entries as well as automated entries, all of them lying there in our server in a very private environment to give you the consolidated view. So the goal is to eliminate most manual steps and the errors they introduce while drastically speeding up the whole process, all while exceptionally cost efficient. So if we can move on to the next slide. So what we are showing in here is one of the scanned inputs that is provided by our field agent. So if you can check out, there are multiple line items which are getting fed into the system on a server. Please, if you can go to the next slide. So herein you see some bounding boxes. So in a technical languages, these are called bounding boxes. These are nothing but just the kind of information that we are gathering, what kind of information we are gathering in a particular box. So as you can see, we have picked up the description as well as SKU level information such as quantity, price from the invoice itself. So this is enabled by a very complicated and intricate module which learns the data through large language models. Move on to the next slide. And finally, what we have over here is the correct representation of the SKUs. As you can see from here, the first line items, which is mentioning AP, which is nothing but a short form of Asian Paints Apcolite Premium Gloss Enamel in Firozi color. So what kind of information is available? We have the company, we have the product name, we have the color, we have the bucket size as well. And with it, we have price, quantity, and amount tagged correctly. Yeah. So this is the kind of output we are providing in a real-time environment, in a very private and controllable environment, the server that we are using. And move on to the next slide, please. In here, we'll define what kind of workflow we have brought up to piece this all together. So first and foremost, as you can rightly see onto the lower part of the slide, is the module that we have developed. So what we have done is each and every image is pre-processed, all of the data alignment, the invoice alignment, if some aberrations is there, that is corrected through pre-processing. Then after that, our AI ML module comes into picture, which is trained on more than 1,000 invoices, more than 40 plus formats. Now we utilize large language models, which is very coherent with the generative AI capability, so that a large amount of information in the correct format gets picked up from those invoices. Then we have, after this kind of information is picked up, we have rule-based processing through which the information is aligned to our master or the client information. And then finally, we have detailed measurement metrics. If we talk about the whole process of how it is implemented in the field, so first of all, there is a field agent which is collecting the data via our survey platform, which is a very asset-light, industry-leading, which is having a very light module, which has scanning capability. From there, it moves on our Metrix server, where all of the data is compiled, and we look for any better quality or image aberrations that can be there. If there is an image aberration or a quality issue, then it is again left for assessment and the communication is done to the field. Along the process, we find most of the quality invoices transferred to our pipeline, where the AI ML module comes into play. The structured data is extracted from it, and finally, we get our retail measurement services metrics, and that too in real time. If you can move on to the next slide, please. Now, what is the tangible impact that it is making? So first and foremost, the speed of operation. So an auditor used to take around 2 hours or longer. Now that has been cut to 20 minutes or 30 minutes, which means that he has more important stuff to do. After that, cost efficiency is more related to the speed of operations while also enhancing the productivity. So this 10,000 numbers was for the second round of RMS that we did. And right now we are sitting at much more invoice process than earlier. So the scale could be as high as 40,000, 50,000 invoices that we are processing every month. So by that sense, it makes absolutely clear that this invoice processing tool has brought out a reduced uh, time that it took for a field agent to cover an outlet, and he is more inclined towards the unautonomous or more he's freed from the routine task to a more valuable on-ground insights. And finally, more than challenges in the trend change, we brought out what the region-wise understanding of the retail market is quite clearly and quite evidently to the client, so that the client is now more appreciative and understanding of the fact what is the ground reality going on and how their sales team, marketing team, and strategy team can leverage the data with more confidence. So essentially, this is not just a white paper in a sense that it is also getting implemented in real time as we speak. So this is not the future, this is the present reality of how the retail measurement services is leveraging advanced analytics such as AI/ML modules and transforming the retail landscape via more accurate retail measurement service. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpit, for the interesting presentation. It's fascinating to see how artificial intelligence and machine learning are transforming the retail data collection and making it faster and more accurate also. We have a lot of questions to you, but we'll come back to you at the end. And listeners, please do type in your questions in the question window. Next slide, please, Sandesh. Now I would like to invite the winner of the Best Developmental Research Award, Tripti from Ipsos. Tripti will share the award-winning work on capturing the realities of one of Tamil Nadu's most marginalized community. Through comprehensive stakeholder engagement, and the study was designed to generate deep insights, helping shape inclusive social welfare policies. And we are eager to know more about it. Over to you, Tripti.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiva, and thanks, Arpit, for the very exciting presentation. And it's an interesting paradox that we are talking about AI and how we are adopting it in the industry to bring in efficiency and accuracy. And what I will be talking about is the development challenge of a particular community in Tamil Nadu, which was not even known to many of us before we started working on this. And what are the living conditions and how the research that we did is probably trying to do our bit in terms of bettering the policies and the programs that can improve the status. So I thank MRSI for giving us this opportunity to share about the work that we have done and what has been our learning, and hoping that the presentation helps the researchers who are on the call to always think probably out of box, understand why we are in the research industry, and whatever we are doing can actually contribute to better policies, better programs, and maybe more fair world for everyone. So with this, I'll start my presentation. In terms of introduction, I think as Shiva has already mentioned, I represent Ipsos. I work in Chennai. And this study that I'll be talking about, before I go into the methodology of how did we approach the study, just some context about communities and what was the need for this assessment or the study that we did. So Kudarai Vannar are known as the Dalits. Among the Dalits, they are the lowest in the social hierarchy. Even in Tamil Nadu currently and wider, there are these people who are staying, who are treated as people who serve the Dalits, either as cleaners, barbers, or people who do the menial jobs for the Dalits in the villages. And typically, there used to be one family serving the entire village of 200, 300 households doing this menial chores. They are not necessarily counted in census as this is one of the subcaste of the Dalits. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this community is obviously trapped in a vicious circle of discrimination because they are the most marginalized, less heard. There is very limited information even in the statistics with the government departments who are responsible for designing policies and welfare programs for the community. And as we all know that in absence of data in terms of tangible numbers of who these people are, where are they scattered, it is very difficult for any development agency to reach out to them with policies and programs. So this was a problem that we were approached with as to can we line study to understand how many people in this community, where are they scattered across the state and what their living conditions are, which can inform the agencies to develop policies and programs which may help them to kind of get access to better welfare policies. So the last information that was available was of the census, which was also not very comprehensive because it is not captured as a subcaste. And the only information that was available is that there are about 21,000 individuals across the different districts in Tamil Nadu. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the context in which the study was designed, that there was insufficient data, and as researchers we know that if we have to do a sampling, we have to design a study. We know the geographies where I need to go, where are the primary sampling units that I will be visiting, and I can do so many surveys. But this was something that was not known to us, so there was an entire different lens that we had to take as to how do we go and identify these individuals and what support can be garnered to reach out to them. There is also unclear identity because of various reasons. Because if people have to get access to welfare policies, we know caste certificates becomes a prominent document. So people have this document, some people don't have this document, and some people, because of the stigma, may not want to self-identify themselves as belonging to this community if they have moved up the ladder through education, employment, livelihood, or any other access. And one of the main reasons for designing the study was that there was a lack of targeted policies, though there was anecdotal information that they are the most marginalized, the issues that they face, what are the needs that needs addressed was not known. And therefore, though the government had dedicated budget assigned to this community, in absence of any data, it remained underutilized for several years, and therefore it was decided to do this baseline survey by the client. Next. Yeah. So the approach that we took in terms of designing the study, that because we need to go and find them and have their trust and confidence where they can share about their living conditions and the challenges that they face, we had to remove the lens of as a researcher, like I am going as an external person, peeping into their societies and life and trying to understand their challenges, but it was important to build that trust where they could share about their living conditions, the challenges that they face, and actually have access to them. So therefore, the entire design and the methodology was based on the anthropological data collection methods, where the focus was on engaging the communities themselves, uh, explaining to them what is the purpose, how the data will be used, why this data is needed, and therefore work alongside with them or members and representatives from the community to gather this data. And triangulation was a big part of the methodology, because when you go back with data and numbers, it is important that there is confidence in the data based on which the decisions can be made. And therefore, this community engagement, involvement of different stakeholders, both from the government, non-government, and community level, was at the foundation of the approach that we took. In terms of data collection methods, we visited about 17,000 different households across all 38 districts. And in each district, we visited multiple blocks, villages to reach out and gather information on their housing and access to basic amenities, understand about the social security documents that they have, what is their access to health and nutrition, education, occupation, and livelihood opportunities. And this was done through a house-to-house survey. Once we reached out to the community, explained to them the purpose, and snowballing to kind of identify leads and pursue these leads and encouraging them to participate in the survey, accompanied with focus group discussions with the community, as well as they have a welfare board, which is representative of the community, which is a recognized a group of people who claim to have kind of represent their community. So as we understand, any self-nominated or self-appointed group may have its own merits and demerits. So there was a balanced perspective that was needed to ensure that we are able to engage them effectively, but not color our findings or voting based on what government already knows through engagement of this welfare board members. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So again, coming back to the methodology, what our focus was and what actually drove our entire mission of data collection, aligning the operations team, was that we should try and ensure that we leave no one behind. And there could be reasons why this would be possible, because the village is very remote, people are refusing, our teams are finding difficult to access, there is lack of mistrust, lack of trust within the government agencies, that they just come, collect the data, nothing gets done. So therefore, with this, driven with the purpose of leaving no one behind, we garnered about 60-70 interviewers who were working with them, and we reached out to more than 200 plus welfare board members who are representatives of the communities. We had entry-level meetings with the stakeholders facilitated by the client in different industries at the state level, where we shared our methodology, how we are going to go about using snowballing approach, identifying the household, how their engagement will be ensured, and took their feedback. Obviously, there were questions, there were doubt, like why an external agency has to do it, we are better placed to do it. But when we explained the approach, the snowballing and the continuous engagement, how it will be ensured, that gave them the confidence that we are not here just as a third party doing some random survey which will not engage them or involve them, but we got their full support. And throughout the 4 or 5 months of data collection, we continuously engaged with the community, bouncing them with the numbers that, okay, we have visited X number of villages, we have found so many households, what's your view, do you think is there anyone left behind? We also interacted with district and block level officers who are responsible for issuing certificates or who have knowledge about this community, with whom we again had meetings, shared the details with them on numbers, do the numbers seem right, and also looked at literature and multiple other sources which could ensure that we have comprehensively attempted to reach the community and the district, and we have got the details. And as you would expect, it was a very iterative process. So what was planned to be finished in 2 months took at least 4 or 5 months. But what this extra time really ensured that everybody was on board. So every time the numbers were presented, there was increased confidence that yes, we have followed the right approach, and therefore the data that is coming out is reliable and can inform the programs and the policies that are intended to be designed. Next slide. Yeah. So through this entire engagement process, we were able to survey about 17,238 households, which ensured that we were able to reach out to 50,000 plus individual members. And we were able to kind of gather data on the different parameters that were intended to, generating maybe probably the first time the deeper insights about one, the geographical spread, and secondly the socioeconomic conditions, which becomes like a reference document now for our client to ensure that how they can now target these communities with the programs that are already designed for the larger like scheduled caste community, but when you don't have information about the subcaste or the other smaller groups which are more marginalized within the marginalized community, with very targeted policies. Next slide. Yeah. Some of the key findings that we saw, because when we started it, one of the key purpose or like the query that we had or something that we were struggling with is like, how do we identify that whether this person is actually belonging to this community? And this is a data that we will probably need to defend. So we were collecting data on what kind of certificates do they have, and are these certificates used for them to access different social welfare schemes. So only 21% had this caste certificate which mentions their subcaste, which is helping them to avail welfare services. So as we all know, if you have to avail any welfare schemes or benefits, the document becomes your primary like use. If you don't have that, then you don't exist as part of that community, and therefore you can be deprived of the services that you ought to get. So this was one of the key findings which has really driven a lot of effort as a result of this study to ensure that how you can ensure the first milestone that people get access to these documents and therefore benefits and services. Also, as I said in the beginning, though we are talking about like moving into the 21st century where the boundaries or the differences are diminishing, but there are this community still residing in one of the developed states where they do feel that they do not have access to public places as other communities. They do experience stigma and harassment, and this was though not prominently mentioned, but 19% did mention about experiencing harassment and being excluded from social events owing to their caste identity. Next slide. Yeah. So one of the kind of approach that we took to highlight the differences and the needs of these communities. Sorry, the screen has gone blank. So, yeah. So one of the approach that we took to highlight what the needs are, like just compare this community with the general population in the state. So we look at the various development indicators as to where the state stands in the, on those indicators, and where this community particularly stands in terms of access on the same parameters. So as you can see on most of the parameters which are highlighted in red, they are comparably lower than the general population. So that's like just a statement that what needs to be addressed. Obviously, their economic condition is not great because their average in annual income compared to the general community in Tamil Nadu was almost like 2 times less. Literacy rate, also when we are talking about 85% literacy in the state, amongst this community, it remains low at 76%. And we know that education is kind of the stepping stone to ensuring access to better livelihood opportunities, skill training, and therefore upliftment of the economic status. So these are some of the parameters that the client is clearly focusing on and identifying as to how they can address this gap. And coming to my last slide. Yeah. Yeah, so the study and its executions serve two purposes. So one, the entire study, which kind of drove an engagement approach where we were interacting with different stakeholders who are responsible for implementing policies. So that itself has been a sensitization and awareness creating approach that this community exists, these are their living conditions and needs, and therefore they need to be addressed. And the second, now there is a data which is like hard data in terms of what their status is, where they are, and how to target. And therefore, there is a clear roadmap that has been generated as a result of the findings of the study, where district levels are doing outreach activities, encouraging people to come forward, apply for the certificates, or at least express their needs. And based on the needs, specific policies and programs are being developed in the financial year, because the study kind of just was designed in a way that during the financial year planning, there is data available which will inform the government of what are the needs are, and therefore the budget utilization can be planned. So it is with great pride that I presented this study on behalf of my team and Ipsos, because these are the studies which kind of tells us that what we are doing, it can make an impact, and we are able to inform through our clients about what policies and programs can be created. So it has been a very enriching and satisfying experience. And again, thank you for listening and thank you for this opportunity. Over to you, Shiva.
Thanks, Tripti. Thank you for the powerful presentation. Your work truly highlights the importance of data-driven insights in shaping inclusive policies and ensuring no community is left behind. We'll connect with you in the final part of the session with the questions. And a gentle reminder to the audience, please do share your questions in the question window. Next slide, please, Sandesh. Finally, I would like to invite the winner of the Best Business Impact Through Research Award, Ankur from Hindustan Unilever. Ankur shared the award-winning work on understanding the digitally evolving rural consumer. By leveraging Hindustan Unilever's rural strength and data-driven insights, they have identified key growth areas at village level. This paper offers a fascinating glimpse into the surprisingly connected rural consumer, revealing new opportunities for business growth. Over to you, Ankur.
Thanks, Shiva, and really exciting as well as invigorating to listen from Arpit and Tripti on their researches as well, quite enlightening. I would like to present this research findings on the behalf of my team. So that the other members who worked on this was Rohit Bansal, there was Kashmira Kothawde, K. Gopalakrishnan, and under the guidance of course, Anila Vinayak. So those are the members who worked on this. Let's go to the next slide and I'll dive right in to try to explain to you what we did through this research. So the name of the project was Project Mitro and Project DigiGram. So these were two research projects that we had picked up for the rural audience. Can we move to the next slide? So to begin with, what we knew from various different sources, and this was picked up through government data, through third-party sources, we knew that rural is changing. So we had some amounts of data sources. We understood that, sure, rural is a big part of FMCG, contributes to about 40%. There's a great amount of digitization which has happened of late in rural, with, of course, mobile internet now being quite prevalent in rural as well. Great number of roads are being developed in rural areas as well. And access also is becoming commonplace because people are, say, purchasing a lot more scooties, for instance. Also purchase of other automobiles has also increased. All of these factors, along with others like rural women working more, the appetite for newer foods, newer beauty products, all of this told us that there was a change which is afoot. Now we wanted to actually analyze what was the extent of this change and to what extent could we change our priorities here at HUL, and what was the amount of change required as well. So if we could move to the next slide. What we wanted to do and how we set about set about to do this was that we actually looked at various different sources. So if you can move to the next slide, I'm able to see the past slide only currently. Yeah, so there was a three-phased approach that we used in which there was the first part of the approach was to look at what were the villages currently in the country where the maximum amount of FMCG uptake was happening. So that was the first part of the exercise called Bharat Ke Gaon. And we actually found out that there are about 66 odd thousand villages which actually contribute the maximum to FMCG contribution in rural. So once we had zeroed in on these villages, we called them Bada Gaons, and we said that these are villages which you really need to kind of focus on. But even within this, what we needed to understand is how do we focus on these villages? And for this purpose, one of the things that we did was that we looked at how MSP for crops had recently been increased by the government, and it had been increased for certain crops. So we looked up those crops online and we tried to find out where is the cultivation of those crops maximum, where is the yield for those crops maximum, and thereby knowing that since generally rural is largely an agricultural dominated society, we realized that these are probably the crops, or the farmers who are growing these crops are the ones who are going to be possibly the most influenced. They're the ones who are going to be most impacted. Their income, their income there is probably going to grow the most. With this in mind, therefore, we found out which are the districts which have the highest yield for these crops, and then found out some of the villages in these inside these districts where we could go and do this research. And that's the research that we eventually did with them. It was called Digigram and Realgram. So I'll explain what was that in the next slide. So in the next slide, if we could move on, what we find out again, as I explained, is that there's only about 11% of these villages which were contributing to about 50% of the contribution to FMCG in rural. And that's where we wanted to go. We prioritized using MSP, and we went and did a lot of in-depth analysis, qualitative interviews, but we'll try to explain what we actually did within those qualitative interviews that made it so special. So moving to the next slide. So there was qualitative interviews for sure, but what we did along with that was that we really wanted to get a true flavor of the people who are living in these villages. And for that reason, firstly, we picked up villages which were fairly away from big towns or cities. So at least 50 kilometers, at least 70 kilometers away from any nearby town even. I'm not talking about big cities, I'm saying towns that they were away from. We looked at LSM 2 to 5, we looked at homemakers as well as employed individuals. We looked at ages 18 to 35, using some amount of smartphones, and who are decision makers for beauty purchase products. And we went to this kind of a TG specifically because we wanted to understand what is that little more evolved rural consumer all about today, because they are going to be basically the kind of harbingers of the rural adoption that is going to happen in the rest of the country for the years to come. So we went to these consumers. Not only did we go and interview them, but along with that, we gave them very interesting tasks as well to understand how they are using digital, as well as what are the kind of products which are kind of making an entry into their lives. So we gave them tasks, for instance, with their approval, with their approval on their devices. We actually looked at which are the apps that they are using on their phones. For how long are they using these apps on their phones daily as well? We also asked them to send us a snippet of a day in their lives. And interestingly, consumers were already recording this because a lot of them were making reels themselves. They sent us little tidbits of reels of when they had gone out with their family for an evening outing, and some such other very interesting reels around how they had, for instance, created a dance video and so on and so forth. So very engaging, very entertaining. But at the same time, we also asked them to give us a showcase of the beauty products within their house. And what we found from that was quite revealing in itself, which I'll reveal in the next slide. So if you could move on to the next slide. One of the things that we interestingly did before we even went and did the interviews with the consumers was to actually just look at Google and then figure out from Google geotagged images what was the locale of this of various villages. So this is one of the examples, just one of those villages that we can talk about here. Those are, of course, the images of the eventual respondents that we met. But along with that, we also put down images of some of the other locales within that village and what was happening there. So for instance, there's a hospital which in 2015 looked like what it was in the bottom left, and it had revamped in 2020. And that was the kind of renovation that was done because there was a lot more money available to them at that point in time. There are beauty parlors which have opened, which are AC beauty parlors which are available. And if you'll see the kind of services being offered, they are at par pretty much with a lot of the other services that you would receive even in urban centers. So all of these images, a lot of these were very enriching through other villages as well, where we were able to figure out what's really happening in villages and not like a very superficial outlook otherwise. Moving to the next slide. So this is what I was speaking about in terms of looking at the different apps which were present in their phones. We got a screenshot of their app drawers. And for instance, one of the insights that came through out of this was one of the apps which was really prevalent through all of their phones was actually Meesho. Meesho seemed to be hard loaded on a lot of their devices to begin with. And on top of that, they were starting to use a lot more of it just because it was available on their device. It was pushing them notifications. They started using the app, and slowly but surely, they've also started using e-com. A lot of them have bought products from Meesho. The products get delivered to their village. It's not like you require to go somewhere else. It gets delivered to your house itself. So supply chains of a lot of the e-com providers have developed to that extent. Moving to the next slide. Some of the other findings, which I'll quickly cover, and of course can't cover the whole gamut of them here, but some of the things that we noticed was happening is that there was a lot of digi binging. So if Doordarshan used to be the kind of main port of call for entertainment a few years ago, now it has actually become social media for them. So through the screenshots of how much their phones were being used and on what apps was the battery being spent most on, we realized that it was actually things like Google. So there was YouTube, there was a lot of Meta apps, there was Hotstar that was being used, there was Instagram that was being used as well. So this is a major change that we saw from a few years ago to the devices now. And in fact, a lot of them mentioned that they hardly do watch any TV anymore. It's primarily their mobile device, which is not only used for short-term entertainment when they get a little bit of short-term break between their work, between their housework, for instance. It's also for longer-term entertainment, which happens probably at the end of the day or when they are relaxing during the afternoon. Along with that, we realized they're also becoming e-com considerers. So the kind of the e-com apps that we found in their phones, the kind of purchases which were being made on these apps were really eye-opening in the sense there was not only very basic products which were being purchased, but to the extent of even, for instance, mascaras were being purchased off e-com apps. There were moisturizers which were being purchased off e-com apps. So they've been using a lot of the e-com that's available to them. Apparel is being purchased off e-com apps. They're using them as a source of even getting access to things which are unique, which are not available around them as well. So one of the respondents mentioned that her kid is into dancing big time, and whenever she performs on stage is when she orders a costume off an Amazon, for instance, and that's where she's able to give her daughter the best costume that she can wear on stage. Another thing that we noticed is increasingly super evolved formats are being used by people in villages as well. So there are beauty parlors which are becoming hubs of exposure to these newer formats. So there's, for instance, argan hemp mask, as you can see on screen, is one of the interesting formats which we found one of the consumers using. There's Dot and Key moisturizer, you would an SPF, for instance, which you would have typically thought is something which is very urban centric as a brand. And here you find that in a small village as well, it's present and it's being used by respondents. So these gave you a sense, gave you an example of just the kind of super evolved formats that consumers are using. They're not shying away from using these. And the only difference that we found is that they probably have a certain budget in mind, a certain price point in mind. But if you're able to give them a super evolved format for that price point, then they're more than happy using it. There's no reservation. And they're very, very aware of all these formats because they have been seeing them on Instagram, on YouTube, all the other apps that we mentioned. Moving to the next slide. Another thing that we did then is we tried to understand from consumers as to what could be the importance of different kinds of content in their lives. So we did a kind of an analysis where we sent influencer reels to these consumers, and then we tried to get their feedback, get top two box scorings across likability, relevance, understandability, credibility. So the typical kind of questions that you would ask for a digital preview, but we asked them to them directly after showing them the reels ourselves. And the kind of responses that we got there as well were quite eye-opening in the sense that there was a lot of acceptance of influencer reels as well. There was no distrust with them at all at any level, and they were very, very they were easily understanding most of the content. Of course, there were some nuances which needed to be made for rural content, which we also were able to highlight to our teams. But it was very clear to notice that they weren't absolutely put off by the kind of content which was actually more designed for urban audiences. But when we showed it to the rural consumers, even they resonated with a lot of that content. So moving on to the next slide. So in terms of impact, I think three major things that we were able to land internally was that there was a need for direct distribution, and that was acknowledged amongst a lot of these villages. So the Bada Gaons that as we had highlighted. So a lot more need of directly distributing to these villages. The second thing was category refocus. So till now, what was believed is that very, very basic formats, very basic categories like shampoos, maybe the basic moisturizers is something that you would typically sell in villages. That needed to change. So we needed to go to villages with even more evolved formats, with more advanced formats, because they are already finding those on e-com apps and using them. So they are actually not waiting for anybody to come to them. They are actually finding the need for these newer formats and going and purchasing them off e-com if nobody is coming to them with these formats. Thirdly, media deployment as well. So the learnings that came through the study as well as the Reel grant that we did told us that TV is no longer certainly the medium to reach out to them. It definitely had to also start going towards social media big time. And the kind of content that you showed on social media also needed to evolve. You could use the urban content to a certain extent, but there needed to be some changes made as well. Moving to the next slide. So I think one of the biggest things which we also discussed with the jury at the time of presenting this was that there was some of this which was known, some of this was being read about in a lot of third-party reports as well. But what really was impactful within the company as well was that when we were able to show this, demonstrate this to the internal stakeholders very clearly through all these videos, through the fact that we had taken screenshots of apps and showed them, showed those to them as well, was when people stood up and took notice of what was happening in the villages. So that was very paramount to actually demonstrate whatever was being read and whatever was being read from a distance, to actually demonstrate it in person. That was really key in kind of turning stakeholder heads and them actually taking cognizance of what was happening in rural. And that has led to impact eventually when this was actually executed. So we see a 2x corporate share gain happening between MAT of October 24 versus MAT of Q1 24. Two of the biggest categories within HUL saw kind of a turnaround happening in rural, where laundry gained share by 2.5x, and skin cleansing also stopped its decline in terms of share. Along with that, there was sharp penetration of our core brands that started happening in rural. So that increase started happening as and when we started improving the kind of brands that we were taking to rural, the kind of formats of these brands that we were starting to take to rural, is when we suddenly saw that a lot more penetration was starting to increase, because we were actually providing them with what the rural consumers actually needed. So that's about it. That was what we did with this project and the kind of impact that it had, and it really opened a new window for us to sell and to sell much better and more evolved products, as well as better content to our rural consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankur, for that insightful presentation. Project Mitron and Digigram truly highlights how rural consumers are more digitally connected than what we often assume, opening up exciting opportunities for growth. Quick reminder to the audience, hope all of you have posted your questions in the question window. Before we move to the Q&A session, a few quick announcements from our side. Next slide, please, Satish. Okay, we at MRSI, along with the research world, will be celebrating the International Market Research Day on 2nd May 2025. We invite you to the Festival of Knowledge and Innovation. Please do stay tuned to MRSI social media channels for further updates on this one. Our next month's Wednesday webinar will be on the most happening thing, the Indian Premier League. We'll be there with an interesting line of speakers and a lot of insights. Next slide, please. And please do mark your calendars for the 33rd MRSI Annual Research Seminar 2025. It will be held on 11th and 12th of September this year in Gurgaon, and we hope to see you all there. Next slide, please. And now it's time for the Q&A. Okay, we have a host of questions to all of you. I'll go one by one. First question to Arpit. Arpit, you have used both artificial intelligence and machine learning and also LLMs for the invoice processing. Could you share the biggest technical challenge you faced while making these technologies work smoothly together? Especially given that in the Indian market, there's a wide variety of invoice formats present.
Sure, sure. So I think that is too large of a question, because the challenges that we've been facing and the solutions that we've been providing spans over an year or so. So let me concise that and maybe not make it too technical. So when we first started out with this journey, so what we were using is AI ML modules. We were not using any generative AI or LLMs. So the challenge that we faced was that even with a slight modification in let's say invoice orientation or a new template coming into picture, uh, a lot of incorrect taggings were getting provided by the output. So this was majorly the template based classification that we were using. And then upon discussion with industry leaders, so one of them are scanning applications leaders such as ScanBot and all. And then we also had some conversations with leading vision providers such as Microsoft and Google. So one sync that we saw across the board was they were using I think the template agnostic platform, with which we enhanced our AI/ML capability to LLM generated capability as well. So now with the LLM getting into picture, so one kind of bias that it introduced to the system is the kind of data it is trained on. So particularly for Indian context, as you rightly mentioned, that Indian context can be very different. So all of these LLM libraries can be very keen and keenly modeled on the foreign data. So what we did was we uptrained those LLM libraries onto the Indian context, and therein we received much better Ekman scores, much better accuracy, and that is how we coped up with this, the most challenging part. The second challenge came from the operations front, because operations was handling the manual entries first. So abrupt change from manual to automated world was quite a bit of task. So what we did was uptrained our operations field and made the survey platform very easy to use. And that's wherein we realized that a lot of invoices captured were, let's say, blurred, or maybe not the full invoices were getting captured. So we also implemented a system that takes that into account. We have a separate pipeline so as to decide whether the image quality is good enough for the further processing or not. If that is not good enough, then it again go back to the system, and that's how we look at it. So I think these 2 pointers were the major challenges that we faced during our journey.
Thanks, Arpit. There was one question to you from Arindam Som. I'll answer the question. Arindam Som, Arpit does the retail audit for paint category. This was a paint category example, and it's almost similar to the Nielsen retail audit data, which covers the FMCG part, but this was for the retail paint category. And we're running out of time. I'll squeeze in a question to Tripti quickly. Tripti, you mentioned the challenges of getting the community members to participate, especially those who have moved away from the Kudure Pannar identity. So what are the steps you took to improve the participation and get a representation of all the people in the segment? So you can quickly answer that one.
Yes, so yes, as you rightly mentioned, it was a very nuanced challenges, because if somebody did not want to identify, we had to ensure that they are not kind of forced or compelled to answer. So we had a combination of approaches to ensure that we get their participation. So one was also a genealogical test, because when we were doing the household survey, we were asking about their family members and relatives and where they are. So that kind of gave us a wide spectrum of where people are and then approaching them. Second was obviously engagement of the PV board members who are representatives of the community, their engagement and communication through them, or engaging community consultants from the community who could become our spokesperson, and extended data collection team also gave them the confidence about the purpose and how this data will be used. Also, we did a kind of a flexible framing of the caste-based question. So rather than asking like, are you Kuduraivanar member, it was also there were other questions built in, like their occupation, traditional occupation that their parents or ancestors were involved in, where we could kind of trace it. And last was the snowballing in the urban areas, because in rural areas it's more easy to at least find, but in urban areas it was mostly snowballing. And so a combination, and then the triangulation approach kind of helps to ensure that we were able to communicate the objective and get their participation.
Thanks, Tripti. We have a lot more questions to both Ankur, Tripti, as well as Arpit, but we have almost crossed our time. So sorry for this. I have to stop here the Q&A session. Thank you, Arpit, Tripti, and Ankur for your valuable insights and time. Today's session was insightful and filled with learnings. Dear audience, this recording of this webinar will be available on the MRSI's YouTube channel shortly, so you can revisit them and also share it with your friends and colleagues. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience today, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.